two agents?
Just because it's legal doesn't make it right.
But it did happen.
It did happen.
Thank you. That's all we wanted to hear. That another prisoner who's now claiming to be a political prisoner. He was judged by a jury. Thank you very much.
You should get it correct. He is a prisoner of war.
And briefly, to your knowledge, is Senator Peltier innocent of any crime or in fact innocent or did not act to kill his FBI agents? To her knowledge.
To my knowledge, Mr. Peltier did not, in fact, shoot those agents. Those agents were killed on the sworn testimony of my husband, Robert Robidoux, who said when he went down to the cars, these worms were crawling around, and he shot them purposely to take them out of their misery. Mr. Peltier did not, in fact, shoot those agents.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
People may call their next witness.
Paulette Luis Garcia. Good afternoon, Mr. Garcia.
Good afternoon.
Yes, and again, what qualifies you to speak here today in testimony against the defendant?
Well, as a Chicano Mexicano, I was born in Mexico. I grew up here in the United States from age 8, and so I identify myself as a Chicano Mexicano. With that life experience and knowing the history from my major studies and Chicano studies in college, I know the true history of the United States and the relationship with Mexico, and because of those experiences, we are recognized under the United Nations Charter, Article 27, as a recognized national oppressed minority in the United States.
The Chicano Mexicano.
Yes.
And what distinguishes the Chicano Mexicano people from the rest of the United States?
Well, first of all, we did not immigrate to this country. We have been here all along. The distinguishing feature is that we were born from this continent. The United States came to this continent, committed cultural genocide, and now is attempting cultural genocide in order to wipe out the memory of our history and our culture.
Okay, and this place where we're standing now, did it also used to be part of Mexico?
We are standing on land of prior sovereignty rights that we claim under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, another treaty that was made between two sovereign nations, Mexico and the United States. And again, the United States broke that treaty, which is considered under U.S. law the supreme law of the land, that they do not recognize.
Are you aware of any political prisoners held by the United States?
Yes, there's many political prisoners. Now, my definition of a political prisoner includes what's known as so-called common criminals. In this sense, the penal code, the criminal law, is created through law in the United States. That law represents white supremacy. It represents the lack of participation, through the lack of democracy from people that would create different types of laws, and a lot of these so-called common criminals would not be in prison.
Are you familiar with Alvaro Luna Hernandez?
Yes, I am. He's a political prisoner in Texas. He was accused of killing a police officer, and his defense is one of self-defense.
Are you familiar with Ramsey Muniz?
Ramsey Muniz has been in prison for over 30 years. He was falsely accused, wrongfully convicted of being a marijuana trafficker. That we know the circumstance of that arrest was something that was trumped up against him because of his political activities with La Raza Unida Party, the Chicano movement from the 70s.
And are you aware of what are called ICE raids.
Yes, ICE raids it's the fastest growing rate of prison population in the United States because of ICE raids and the criminalization of the undocumented status of people migrating to the United States and immigrating to the United States from across the 7 seas. That prison population has grown from around 30,000, let's say as little as 10 years ago. It's now over 300,000. It's the fastest growing prison population today.
So in addition to prison, what happens to people after they've been taken into custody during these ICE raids?
Well, for one thing, they're not guilty of any particular crime. It is not a crime to cross the border. In fact, the borders crossed us. We didn't cross the borders. We have been migrating for thousands of years. And it's a civil law offense to cross the border without documentation. You are not guilty of committing any other crime other than the status that you're standing over a so-called political border.
And what happens to the people who cross the border, this border between the state of Mexico and the United States of America?
Well, they get put in prisons that are brutalizing experiences for people that are coming here mainly to look for work. A lot of farmers, over 1 million farmers, were pushed to come to the United States when their farmlands were confiscated in Mexico because of NAFTA laws. They were not able to compete against agribusiness, and so they came here looking for work. And what do they get? They get locked up in brutal conditions, lack of health care. People die in detention while they're waiting to be deported, in horrible conditions.
Thank you.
Mr. Garcia, I have a few questions. On behalf of the Honorable, the Righteous, President Obama of the United States of America, I have a few questions. I have a few questions. Yes, sir. You certainly did. La Raza Unida Party, wasn't it about separating from the United States?
No, it wasn't. It was formed, the Raza Unida Party was formed in Texas, Crystal City, Texas, to fight the white supremacy that was involved in Crystal City and throughout the state of Texas and throughout the Southwest. It was a form of electoral politics, another form of resistance.
Wasn't there a tendency, though, that called for self-determination of the Chicano-Mexicano people?
The right of self-determination is recognized by the United Nations the whole world over, and it simply means democracy. It means the people determining for themselves what kind of government we want to live under.
In essence, self-determination is secession, is it not?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes. In essence, at its core, self-determination stands for secession.
Two separate concepts altogether. Democracy, the right of the demos from the Greek, the people, to govern themselves, is considered in the United States, when the Constitution was formed, an inalienable right.
But with this treaty that you mentioned, Guadalupe Hidalgo, y'all became part of the United States. I mean, right? Just like Puerto Rico. Y'all became part of the United States through a treaty. I don't see why you talk about self-determination. But let me go back.
That's a lie.
Okay.
Let me go back. Just two questions real quick, because I know that we're have to close this up. Y'all seem to have bought out the jury. Didn't Mr. Muniz and Mr. Luna Hernandez